Hi, this is Greg Goernert of Goernert Wealth Management, and this is my Insights and Perspectives podcast. Welcome to Insights and Perspectives If I Knew Then, the show where we share the stories of the successes and challenges entrepreneurs and creatives face on a daily basis as they build extraordinary lives. We celebrate their triumphs both personally and professionally, learn from their setbacks, and reflect upon what they've learned about themselves. In this month's episode, I'm joined by Cory Churko, musical director and guitarist for Grammy Award-winning artists Shania Twain, Kelly Clarkson, Reba McEntire, as well as his own band, Took. Cory Churko, if you could go back to the beginning and give yourself one piece of advice, what piece of advice would that be?
Because I do believe in destiny, I don't think I could have done anything differently, but
it's September 1st, and there's a couple of things I wanted to touch upon before we move on to this month's feature If I Knew Then interview. First off, there's a great piece in my monthly newsletter on the Dunning-Kruger effect and my thoughts on how this psychological phenomenon often leads smart investors to make poor investment decisions about their financial health. It's up now under the newsletter tab on my website, www.greggoernert.com. That's greggoernert.com. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about is the recent market volatility. The big news moving the markets this week were President Trump's tweet last Friday voicing his frustration with U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell and musing on who was a bigger enemy, Jay Powell or Chinese President Xi. I feel these days I could start every one of my market updates with something like market volatility, presidential tweet, blah, 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 wash, rinse, repeat. But I think we gave you a pretty good idea of where we see the markets in my last podcast when I was joined by Javed Mirza. And I'll have friend of the show, Tony Dwyer, Canaccord Genuity North American equity strategist, join us over the next couple of weeks. So I think we really got that part covered. What I'd instead like to talk about is why the markets were so upset with this attempted interference by the president with the Fed, and why the Fed is independent politically in the first place. First off, what is the Federal Reserve? The U.S. Fed is much like the Bank of Canada or the Bank of England in the UK. Amongst other things, the Fed's mandate is to maximize employment while maintaining stable prices. A key way it does this is by setting the overnight Fed's fund interest rate, which all banks use as a benchmark. What's interesting about last week is that it wasn't the first time a president has clashed with his Federal Reserve chairman. The Fed wasn't always independent. During the Second World War, the Fed was essentially an arm of the Treasury Department, and it wasn't until 1951, under Truman, that the Treasury-Fed Accord was struck, allowing the Fed to maintain its independence. But it wasn't a law, just an accord. The first time this accord was seriously tested came under Lyndon Johnson, and it did not go well. You see, Lyndon Johnson came to power after the assassination of John F. Kennedy and inherited a costly Vietnam War. He also championed the War on Poverty and Great Society initiatives. Now, these problems were expensive, and he didn't want to raise taxes, so they borrowed a lot, or essentially printed money. And whenever you print a lot of money, it can and will cause inflation. Enter Federal Reserve Chair William McChesney Martin. Martin was the originator of the quote that the Fed's job is to take the punch bowl away just as the party gets going, meaning raising interest rates before inflation takes hold. Martin and his fellow Federal Reserve governors looked at the facts and determined that the Johnson administration's policies were indeed inflationary. They decided that an increase in the Fed funds rate was warranted. Now, when Johnson got wind of this decision, he wasn't happy. He felt that a rise in interest rates could threaten his re-election chances, sound familiar, and cause a recession. He railed against Martin. He cajoled him. He attempted to isolate him. All to no avail. When the U.S. Fed Board of Governors voted to raise overnight interest rates by 50 basis points, or 0.5%, Johnson went ballistic. He summoned Martin to his ranch in Texas, and as reports had it, he was so overcome by rage that he physically pushed Martin up against the wall. Plus que change. The more things change, the more they stay the same. My guest today is award-winning multi-instrumentalist, music director, vocalist, and mix engineer. He's one of the most sought-after musicians in the entertainment industry today. He has worked as musical director, guitarist, and fiddle player for Shania Twain, played with Kelly Clarkson, Reba McEntire, and has just finished touring with Guns N' Roses Slash on the European leg of Slash's Conspirators tour. His current band, Took, has just released their second album, and as a mix engineer and programmer, he's worked alongside such giants as Mutt Lange and Mike Shipley. Welcome, Cory Churko.
Hi there.
Well, hey, well, it's really great to have you here. Now, your story is amazing. Now, you work out of LA right now, but you grew up in the prairies, right? So you grew up in Saskatchewan, right? So tell me your story, how you got from Saskatchewan to LA.
Well, I grew up in a family band.
Right.
So from the time I was 12 years old until I was about 18, I was playing with my family all across Canada. And my brother was in the band. He played drums. And we always said that, once we graduated our grade 12, we would move out to Vancouver and start our own original rock band. Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly what we did. I did all my schoolwork on the road. It was through the Saskatchewan Correspondence School.
Wow.
I would do my lessons on my bed in my hotel room after the gig. So like 3 a.m, and then I would wake up the next day and practice as much as I could, practice my guitar and that sort of thing. And actually my grade 12 was a terrible year for me because the schoolwork was keeping me from playing music. And I was just so into my craft at the time that school was just right in the way. So I would get my brother and the bass guitar player in the band, Shane Hendrickson, to do my schoolwork for me, so that I said, well, if you want me to jam with you, you got to help me do my schoolwork.
That's awesome. So no.
So I didn't get very good grades.
Well, no, but now your dad was a teacher, wasn't he? He was a music teacher. Am I correct there?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. He taught in the separate school systems, which is like the Catholic school systems in Moose Jaw.
Okay.
We had our dance band during that time while he worked there. And then when we wanted to get more serious about it, he had to quit his music teaching role, and we all went on the road.
Wow.
My mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister were in the band. And then we dragged along our little baby brothers with us too. Wow.
So this would be 1981, 82 kind of thing in that range?
Yes, exactly. Probably, yeah, exactly. 82.
Wow. That is a totally unusual upbringing. But then, you must have learned so many chops on that. So now you go from playing with the family band, which is just an amazing story, to living in Vancouver. So you said you and your brother had an agreement that once you graduated from grade 12, that you guys would move out to Vancouver and start a rock band, I guess?
Yeah, we started an original rock band called the Explorers. Uh-huh. And, of course, you know as well as me that you don't make any money playing original music back in those days, or even now.
Exactly.
So we had to, because, we already knew how to play country music with the family band, and we had, a repertoire of a bunch of tunes. We thought, well, why don't we just play the country cover band thing and, use that to fund the original rock project. So we had another band called the Underground Outlaws.
Okay.
And that was our country cover band. The problem was we played so much as the country cover band that we got such a following that we decided, well, hey, we better release a record as an original record as the Underground Outlaws as well. So we literally had an album out as the Underground Outlaws and an album out as the Explorers. And we were touring to support both albums as two different bands at the exact same time.
Well, how do logistics of that work? Because I guess you got to plan the tour. So did you do two different venues in two different cities a night or something like that? Or how did that all work?
Exactly. So we'd pull up into, Ottawa, and we'd play the Rock Bar or whatever and play as the Explorers. And we'd do a couple shows as the Underground Outlaws. And
wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And it's probably part of what burned us out because we were just working so hard as a band.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what a lot of people that are outside of the entertainment industry and outside of the music industry I don't think they realize just how much work it is. And then a lot of times, too, there's probably a day job involved. So you're working real hard on your craft, probably 60, 70 hours, and then you got to find time to do some other thing that's got to pay the bills, which is just crazy. And I think having that ability to work that hard applies so well into so many different areas. So you're doing both bands. You're in Vancouver. Where do you go next? Because I know at one point you started playing fiddle, and how did that all come about?
Fiddle came about with the family band.
Okay.
When I was 16, my grandfather gave me a fiddle, and I didn't really have any interest in playing it so much. Mm-hmm. But I thought, since he gave me a fiddle, I should try and learn how to play it. I was into a guitar player at the time named Yngwie Malmsteen, and he would cite Paganini as one of his influences, and of course that's crazy violin music.
Right.
So I thought, hey, I'll just learn how to play Paganini on this thing. And then I realized you had to actually have some skill at it and technique, which I had none of. So I just learned to scratch out one fiddle tune, the Orange Blossom Special.
Okay.
And I would play that at the very end of the night, very poorly. But everybody was drunk, so they didn't know. They just heard a fiddle and they'd go crazy. They'd go nuts. And
wow.
I kept that one song in my repertoire right through until I moved, to Vancouver and, through the Young Underground Outlaws career. And after the bands broke up,
okay,
which happened in a 93 or 94, I think.
Okay.
My brother had moved back to Regina. Mm-hmm. And we tried to keep the band going, and it just, for one reason or another, like bands do, they just kind of break up after a while.
Yeah, sometimes they run their course.
We broke up.
Yeah,
totally. So we broke up, and I had no other skills. And the only thing I could think of would be to work at a music store or go busking. So I decided, my wife she worked at Shoppers Drug Mart.
Okay. So we're back in Vancouver at these times. Okay.
We're back in Vancouver. Uh-huh. My wife was working at Shoppers Drug Mart, and she had a Seniors Day sort of party where the seniors would come. They'd feed them like donuts and coffee. Uh-huh. And she said, hey, you should come play your fiddle. And I said, well, I only know like one song. She goes, well, just learn a few and, come play. So I learned like 9 songs.
Okay. And
went and played the party, and it went very well. But what came out of it was, now I had these 9 songs. Right. And I was thinking about busking, and I didn't want to play as a guitar player because there are so many guitar player buskers. Right. I knew I'd be a dime a dozen. So I used it as an opportunity to learn how to play fiddle better. So I took those 9 songs on the street and opened my case. I actually went down to Granville Island. Right. And that was the first place I opened my case. And I felt very depressed because I was like, oh my God, what has my musical career come to? I tried so hard to make it in the business. I failed. Now I'm begging for money. And you just came off playing. You just came off playing for the seniors at Shoppers Drug Mart, which I know has got to be a huge ego boost as a musician. No offense to anybody, but no, yeah, that's exactly right. But I had to pay the bills, so I put out the case, and I went there at I think 10 o'clock in the morning, and by noon I had $50. I'm like, well, I'm halfway to what I would make in the bars. Playing cover tunes. Well, there you go. So I kept at it, and I had $100 by the end of the day, and I was like, I could do this. And it ended up being such a great vehicle for me to learn fiddle, and I ended up doing it for about 4 years. My favorite spot was the C-Bus terminal. Yep. Going over to North Vancouver. It was a perfect spot because people only came for about 5 minutes. Right. And then the doors would open, people would go onto the boat, and then they'd leave. And then I get a new batch of people. So I didn't have to know that many tunes. Right. I could just sort of recycle my songs as people would come and go. You could have like a 3-minute set. And, and I learned that as soon as the doors open, you start playing the, your money song, which for me was The Devil Went Down to Georgia or the Orange Blossom Special. Perfect. Yeah, so the doors would open, people would walk by me, and then they dropped some coins in my case, and all was good. Wow. But I got a lot of great gigs out of that because one of those people in the C-Bus terminal was a guy from Japan who ended up hiring me to go over to Japan and play at a Scottish castle that they had meticulously torn down in Scotland and recreated in Japan. So
Wow.
I went over there for 5 weeks, and that was quite an experience. But also another person that was there was the entertainment coordinator for Orca Bay.
Okay.
So they hired me to go and play at the Vancouver Canucks games as a fiddler.
Okay.
So when they go to a commercial break for TV, they'd put me up on the big Jumbotron, and I'd play like a 1-minute song. And if they were losing, people would throw ice at me. If they were winning, they'd all stomp and cheer along.
Wow. So, like, I mean, really what I'm hearing you do here is you turn some real adversity into a way to just hone a craft and just turn it upside down and make it something special.
I'd like to think that I masterminded the whole thing, but really it was about survival.
Exactly, yeah. As we all stumble into things, go, no, I meant that.
Yeah.
It's all part of the master plan.
Exactly. I'm a big believer in destiny because of all of this.
Yeah.
I tried so hard to make it in the music business. I did everything right. We had the talent. We had, the songs, and it just didn't happen for us. No matter how hard we banged our head against the wall, we just got burned out and jaded.
Yeah.
And it took me leaving the music business because I didn't tell you the part about why what I was doing. Busking, I was actually funding my exit from the music industry.
So you actually
I was going to school.
So you left music and now you're funding school. So what did you go to school for?
I went to school for computer animation.
Wow. Okay.
And it was called CDIS at the time. It was in Burnaby.
Right.
It's called something else now, Digital School or something like that. I forget. It's still there, but it's changed names.
Okay.
So it was like a 2-year program. Mm-hmm. And, I funded it by borrowing from my mom, of course. Mm-hmm. And then my day-to-day was just expenses were from busking.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, but little did I know, that I was really preparing myself for something else, even though I thought I knew. See, once again, I was trying to control my destiny by going back to school for computer animation, and it didn't turn out that way, that I would end up doing that.
Well, you started working in computer animation. You were working steadily there, from my understanding, until you got a call from somebody. But why don't we talk a little bit about the computer animation and maybe, what happened next and how you got hooked up with Shania?
Sure. So after I graduated from the college, I got a job right away at Mainframe Entertainment, which is a Vancouver company. They were doing 2 TV shows. One was called Reboot. Okay. And one was called Beast Wars Transformers. Actually, in Canada, it was called Beasties because they couldn't say wars on a kid's show.
Oh, okay.
But for the rest of the world, it was called Beast Wars. And it was based on the Transformers toys. Right. And the characters were all like animals, like dinosaurs and apes and cheetahs and that sort of thing, that would turn into these, Transformers that would save the world kind of thing.
Awesome. So you've got your cubicle, you've got your computer.
Yep. That's my new life. And I really, really enjoyed it. I dug everything about it. It was just like the music business, but it was all visual. Yeah. It was the visual arts. But the same creativity went into it. And so I thought, well, I could really do this. It's a industry that's developing right now. That was around the time of Jurassic Park, and I think the first Toy Story had come out at about that time. Right. Yeah. So it was the future, and I was going to be a part of it. But 6 months into it, I got this random phone call. Okay. And it was on my answering machine. Remember those things with the little cassette tapes? Yep. And it said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so from Mercury Records. I represent a few artists, one of which needs a young, energetic fiddle player, and we got your name. 2 people recommended you. We got your name, and we're calling you. So if you could call us back, that'd be great." Well, I thought, it's probably just some new Canadian guy that they're developing. Right. So I just, not that I didn't call back, but I just kind of forgot about it. Right. I didn't call back. They called back a few days later and they said, "Hey, we were a little bit discreet about who this is for, but it's for Shania Twain, so you should really give us a call."
That's worth a call back then?
And so immediately, yes. And so I think, that was Toronto time, so it was already night in Vancouver. So I just left a message. I said, "Hey, yeah, I'm totally interested. Give me a call back." And so the guy called back and he asked for a bio and promo package. I sent him one of my CDs that I had been selling, busking.
Right.
And then I got an 8x10 taken that day and just did a one-off and sent it out in the package, and went back to my cubicle and, kept animating. And like a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I got a call. He said, this is so-and-so. I'm the tour manager for Shania Twain. And Shania and her husband Mutt have reviewed your package and they like what they hear. They would like to fly you out to New York to play on the David Letterman show with her.
Wow. So that was your audition?
That was my audition. Yeah, I had one rehearsal day before that with the band. And that's when I first met Mutt and Shania. And then the very next day was David Letterman. And then we played Good Morning America in that same trip.
Wow. So you fly
out. My audition.
So you fly out there, you rehearse for one day, and suddenly you're like Big Apple, the whole thing there. Suddenly
and they put me up in a hotel. They put me up in a hotel right in the middle of Times Square. So like, I'd never seen anything like it. My head was spinning. I was like, what is going on?
Wow. So you do the audition, you do Good Morning America the next day, and they go, hey, you got the job, and it's all rainbows and unicorns after that. No. What happens next?
They said, don't quit your day job. Shania is going to review all the musicians that she's used over the past few months on all the TV shows that she's played on. And she's going to make a short list. And if you're on that short list, we'll get back to you.
Okay.
So I didn't care. I didn't care because I just played David Letterman. I thought, man, if I have nothing else to show for my musical career, that was it. I could have been okay with it ending right there with, that performance on David Letterman.
Because that could have been pretty cool. Like you'd already embarked on a different career in graphic arts, and you just had this extra thing going, wow, I remember the time I was on David Letterman. That's kind of the pinnacle. That's awesome. So you go back to...
that would have just capped it off.
Wow. Okay. So you go back home to Vancouver, you're working, and now what happens next?
Then about another 2 weeks passed, and then I got the same call from the same tour manager. Shania you've made it to the next rung of the ladder, and Shania would like to have you in rehearsals for her upcoming world tour. He said, but don't quit your day job yet. This is sort of a probation period. But unfortunately, when I went to my boss at the animation place, I explained the situation. He said, well, I'd like to say we can give you a leave of absence, but because we have such it's a high-tech industry, it's very competitive right now, it's just our policy that we just have to let you go.
Right.
So I did quit my day job. And
wow.
And I went out to upstate New York, close to Lake Placid.
Okay.
And started rehearsals with Shania, and it was a 3-month process of rehearsing. None of us in the band thought we'd ever see a show because it seemed like it was taking forever. We were all super paranoid about, spraining a finger or whatever. So, none of us, we had a football that I wanted to throw around, and I was like, no, I don't want to sprain my fingers.
Oh yeah.
It was,
Now,
so
obviously,
long story short is we go ahead.
Yeah, no, stepping up, like obviously by stepping up and working with a band like that and working with Mutt, I mean, the caliber of musicians that you're working with and just the quality that's out there must be exponentially different. Can you talk a little bit about some of the experience that you might have had just dealing with rehearsal and just dealing of some of the things that they might point out?
Right. Well, as a lot of people know, Mutt Lange, Shania's husband at the time, was a big producer. He produced AC/DC and Def Leppard in the glory days, and Bryan Adams and Foreigner and the Cars. He wrote songs for Huey Lewis and the News. So, the guy's legendary. Right. And he was our music director. Wow. So it was very, very daunting to be in front of him playing. He felt very vulnerable. That he was seeing right through you. And truth be known, he actually was seeing right through us because he would say to me things like, Cory, everything you're playing is really good, but if you could just lay back about 10 milliseconds, then it would just be right in the pocket.
Oh, great.
So I never realized how crappy I was as a musician until I got in front of him. But the good news was I was getting paid to go to the Mutt Lange School of Music.
Yeah, that's brilliant too. I mean, the things you just
So
learn just by hanging out with them. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
So
we were auditioning. So I was hired as a fiddle player, but so we were auditioning other guitar players for the role, and we had this joke, about this revolving taxi that would show up and drop off guitar players, and they go back out, and they come in, they go back out. And there's this one guy who came in, started jamming with the band, seemed really good, and then we're like, okay, we'll call Mutt in now, and he'll have a look at you. And the guy just fell completely apart when Mutt walked in the room. And he really choked.
Yeah.
And then I kind of leaned over and I said to one of the other guys, I said, keep the taxi going.
Oh, no. Oh, man. Oh, that's
mean,
hyper competitive. Wow. Okay. So you're rehearsing for 3 months. And was this Shania's Up tour, that was coming up? Is that,
no,
is that
this was her coming over tour.
Okay. Come on over. Okay. So
yeah,
you rehearsed for 3 months. Then you guys go on the road. And how long did you spend on the road with Shania at that time?
So that I think it was about a good year to a year and a half to 2 years, but it was like off and on. It was actually perfect because I think, I moved out of my apartment, and every time we'd have a break in the tour, they would fly me wherever I wanted to go. So my wife was staying with her mom at the time, and we would just meet in like the craziest places like Hawaii or India,
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it worked out really well. It was just like, oh, where are we flying you this time? I'm like, oh, I'm meeting my wife in India. So that was kind of a cool tour.
Wow.
And it went for quite a while. She covered a lot of ground. It was her first actual proper tour. So we visited, Europe and North America and Australia.
Now, were you just playing fiddle at the time, or were you playing guitar as well, or what was your role?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was hired as a fiddle player.
Yeah.
But, not every song had fiddle parts in it. So, of course, I had guitar was my main instrument, so I was quick to let them know, well, I can play that guitar part, or I can do this.
Right.
And piano was my first instrument, which I started learning at 5 years old. So I was like, well, I can play that keyboard part. I can, so I became kind of a utility guy. Whatever, I call myself the scavenger, because whatever was left over, I would do.
Yes, I'm the indispensable part of the band.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just wearing a lot of different hats. Mostly, it's probably half fiddle, and then the others was keyboard and guitar.
Wow. Okay. So the tour comes to an end at that point. Now what happens next? Because this is your first major tour. You're still, I guess, a Canadian. You're kind of home based, I guess, still in Vancouver. But what happens next?
So after that tour ended, actually back up a bit. During that tour, I applied for a green card.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I would get it. I didn't think I would get it, but I thought, I might as well do it now because this is probably the best time to apply for that. Long story short, I ended up getting the green card, and my wife and I had to move to the United States 6 months and a day out of the year, or else they would revoke it.
Okay.
So we're like, okay, well, where are we going to live? It's going to be like Nashville or New York or LA.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, and I think probably because we are already on the West Coast, we just kind of headed straight down and set up shop in LA. When I got here, I didn't have anything, no connections, no work, just a green card. So I got, I had met Mike Shipley. He was the mix engineer for all the Def Leppard stuff that he had done with Mutt. And he gave me his phone number back on the tour, and that's really the only number that I had. I called him right away and I said, hey, Mike, I'm in town. I'm looking for work. I could do some Pro Tools for you. If you need somebody to do that, let me know. Right. And he called back and said, yeah, no, I don't need anybody. But great that you're down here. Good luck. And then that was it.
Oh, great.
30 minutes later, he goes, 30 minutes later, he called back again. He goes, "Hey, can you be down here in like an hour?"
Wow.
He was mixing an Aerosmith commercial.
Okay.
They were using like Aerosmith songs for this commercial. I forget what, I think it was like a Dodge Ram commercial or something.
Okay.
And he asked if I could set up the session for him in Pro Tools, and so I did, and everything went great. And I ended up doing 2 years with him, between tours, mixing songs. And that's when I started to get my studio legs for, behind the scenes stuff,
right,
producing and mixing and all the editing that I did and programming. So that's what I did for 2 years between tours.
Wow. So you're going out and you do 2 years of editing and mixing. Now, what happens next? Because now you're off tour with Shania. What you eventually ended up with, Kelly Clarkson,
right,
and Reba McEntire, and the whole thing. So how did all that kind of come together? Because I mean, it's tough working from one tour to the next, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was the perfect segue actually, because the last gig I did with Mike in the studio was mixing the Shania Up record over in Switzerland. And that was like a 3-month project. It was very grueling. There were like 18 or 19 songs on the record, but they were done in 3 different versions: country version, pop version, and a world sort of Indian version. So
wow, I didn't
we
realize
were literally that. Yeah. So if you search like on Spotify or wherever for Shania Up, there's a green version, which is country, blue version, which is world, and red version, which is the pop version.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the same vocal track, but all different productions.
So basically, it's three albums there. Wow.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why it took us three months to mix it.
Wow.
And there were no days off in that time. It was insane.
Wow.
So right after that, of course, then once the album was there, she had to start doing promo, and I just sort of segued back into the live aspect of my career.
Okay.
And went back on the road with her for the Up tour.
Okay, and how long did that take, that tour?
And that was 2002 to 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And after that was over, I was unemployed.
Yeah.
And a little bit worried because it sounded like she wasn't going to do a record for a long time.
Right.
And once again, I had no other contacts down in LA because everyone that I knew was a part of the Shania team. So
right.
there was nothing going on for me. And I think 6 months passed and I was blowing through my savings really quick.
Right.
I bought a house. So, my mortgage payment was quite high.
Yeah.
And, so then I was like, well, I need a job. I don't know what to do. Once again, it's the survival instinct kicked in. And I started applying at animation places like EA. They have a studio down here.
Okay.
And I applied at a place called Line 6.
Right.
Line 6, for all musicians know what that is, but they basically make like digital amplifiers and software and effects pedals and that sort of thing.
I've got a few myself.
And I applied as yeah, exactly. Everybody does. I applied as a production or a product manager.
Okay.
Whatever that meant, I didn't know, but they were just down the street from where I live. So it made sense that I would try to get a job there. I thought I could get some medical benefits and maybe this is the end of my touring career and I'll just move into a different aspect of music.
Right.
I didn't get the gig, but the guy that I applied to had run into Kelly Clarkson, guitar player at the time. He'd come into the office and he had mentioned to him that Kelly wanted some string players for the next tour. Does he know of any? He says, well, actually, yeah. Kelly Clarkson or Shania Twain's fiddler was just here and wanted a job here. So I know he's available and he would probably love to be on that tour.
Wow.
So that's how I got on the Kelly tour. I got contacted by the music director and it was very short notice. And I went out on her first tour or second tour. I think it was the Breakaway tour.
Okay.
And as a violinist. So once again, I was a guitar player mainly, but it was my fiddle that got me in the door to something awesome.
Wow. Okay.
And,
so now, because I know during the tour, I know at some point you eventually became guitarist and played with her there, and you did some vocals as well. I know I've seen some times when you've actually sang with Kelly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the violin the fiddle always got you in the door. That's the interesting part in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the fiddle got me in the door because it's a novelty instrument. It's something that I'm not at that time a lot, like there were a lot of fiddlers, but they were older guys, maybe not as hip, not with the rock back. The Shania camp liked that I had the rock background, so I looked stylish on stage. I had the moves, from all my guitar rock days and stuff.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. I interviewed Sandra Joseph about 2 years ago, and if you don't know Sandra, she played Christine on Broadway for 10 years in Phantom of the Opera, and when she got her first break with the production, it was on the touring company, and she said she got the gig more because she looked the part rather than anything else, and that was a kind of a big part of how she kind of got in the door. Was just the right look at the time. So I guess being the rock guy, looking that way, really fit well with not only Shania but with Kelly at the time.
Yes, totally. So the fiddle got me in the door, and I did the tour, but I only played 5 songs because there wasn't violin in every song. Okay. So for the rest of the night, I'd stand on the side of the stage and just kind of watch the show go on, the concert. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the end of that tour, there was one show left, and for the guitar player at the time got fired. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Show before the end of the tour.
You got one show left?
It's a long story, but yeah, he got fired. Okay. With one show left in the tour. Okay. The music director came to me and he said, "Hey, Cory, I know you play guitar. Can you play this last show? Because there's not enough time to get another guitar player out here." Right. And I said, "Hell yeah, I can."
Absolutely, I'm there.
So, yeah, and that last show was actually in Vancouver.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that whole day in Vancouver, when I could have been visiting with all my old friends and stuff, I was in the dressing room shedding all these tunes. Wow. And I ended up playing the show, and it went off very well. Uh-huh. Kelly came back after. She goes, "Oh my God, you did so good. I'm going to call you Turbo from now on." That was her.
Turbo. That's awesome.
Yeah. A term of endearment for anybody that she thought was awesome. So that was a big compliment.
Wow. So now you last gig of the tour, you've made the transition from fiddle player to the guitarist.
To the guitarist, but then the tour was over, and there was no tour for another bit of time. And once the next tour rolled around, I was asked to come on that tour again, but they hired 2 other guitar players again. Okay. So they still didn't have confidence in me as because they hired me as a violinist. I can understand that. Right. And they only had one show to see me play as a guitarist. Okay. But I had a bigger role. I was once again a utility guy. I was playing guitar parts. I was playing keyboard parts. I was playing fiddle parts. Wow. And percussion and like I said, whatever scavenge parts were left over. And then I also became a vocal director at that time too, because of my extensive training with the Shania vocals through Mutt, because we did a lot of vocal rehearsals. Right. And also all the vocal training I had with the family band, harmonies and that sort of thing came naturally to me. Plus I had Pro Tools. I was a good Pro Tools guy. I could get all the multi-tracks and divide up all the vocal parts and hand out parts to people that needed to sing them. Yeah, that sort of thing. So that was yeah. I know. I have heard that Mutt can be quite particular with vocals, obviously for good reason, because when you think back to some of the albums that are done, can you think of any of the direction that or any of the words of wisdom he might have imparted to you on how to get great background vocals? Because obviously he's known for that. Yeah, totally. I mean, he would cite examples like the Eagles. Yeah. He would say, what makes the Eagles great? It's not that they can all sing in tune and sing. It's because they all sing with the same throat shape. So he would tell us, don't sing "ah," sing and make sure that we're all doing it so that we all blend together. That kind of thing. So basically that's going to advanced education with the best of the world, and just what totally. And I still use that direction when I'm producing like singers now. Yeah. throat shape is a big part of, blending vocals really well. That's how you can, one guy doesn't stick out over the others.
Right.
They all have the same sort of shape. Yeah. And in rock and roll, words are never the same. That's why English people don't sound English when they're singing.
Yeah.
Because everybody sort of takes on the same, I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be, except when you're Nickelback and you sing story instead of, or sorry instead of sorry.
Okay, so now you're on the Kelly tour. You're still the fiddle player, but you're in the back of your mind, you're going to be the guitar player at some point.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Okay, that's another long story because for whatever reason, Kelly came to my rescue every time. She's like, no, I don't care. I want Cory in the band, and she saved my butt.
Oh, awesome.
Numerous times. Yeah, that was kind of my ascension in the Kelly Clarkson camp.
Wow, so that's when you stood on and got to do Miss Independent and play those great riffs.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So how long were you with Kelly then for the tour?
I think it was 12 or 13 years, so quite a while.
Wow. And you're still vocal director for her as well?
No. So about a year, actually 2 years ago now, Shania released her album at the same time Kelly did. My role in Shania's band was music director, so it was, and guitarist, so it was a little more of a good role for me.
Wow.
Compared to just being Kelly's guitarist.
No, I mean, that's a ton on your plate to be musical director. I mean, not only do you have to know your parts and everything, but you got to know everyone else's stuff backwards and forwards.
Exactly. And I think I've played everybody else's parts because there's been so many variations of the band that I've had to play fiddle on some songs, and on one tour and another tour, I'm playing guitar on the same song. And on the last tour, I actually played bass guitar on a couple of songs. So in some tours, I play keyboards on certain songs. So I feel like I know all the parts pretty well.
Wow.
And obviously I can use that to my advantage as music director.
Wow. So you're touring with Shania again.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a side project that you just got, that we mentioned that you got off tour with Slash just recently. Tell me a little bit how that all came together. And then I do want to talk to you a little bit about your Canadian cover band, which is Took, which I find really intriguing. But let's just step back and talk about Slash's project and how you ended up hooking up with those guys.
Well, it has to do with Took, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because two of the guys from Slash's band are members of Took.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Took later, but they had given our CD to Slash a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, I can't remember.
Okay.
And he apparently was driving around in his car with it. And their other guitarist, Frank Sidoris, had to leave the tour to take care of some family business.
Okay.
And they're like, well, who do we get to sub? And it was actually Slash's choice. He said, well, how about the guitar player from Took, Cory?
Wow.
So he didn't even know that I played with Shania or Kelly or any of my history.
Now we haven't got.
He just knew of me because of Took.
Now we haven't gotten into Took yet, but I want to foreshadow a little bit. But so I'm having this idea of Slash driving around in LA, listening to a bunch of 80s Canadian rock songs, and which is I think it's pretty cool. But so that's how you get the gig, and you just what's it like playing with those guys? Because that's that's an iconic rock band right there.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It was very surreal. The whole thing happened quite quickly. I learned 28 songs, and then they flew me over to Europe. Mm-hmm. I had one sound check, and then it was game on. Wow. So I didn't have time to go through the whole rehearsal process of, oh, wow, I'm playing with Slash. Oh, wow, I'm playing with Slash. It was more like, oh, shit, I'm playing with Slash in in a show. And it does, I mean, he's a great guy, and he didn't make me feel awkward at all. But it was just one of those moments like, this is a guy, childhood hero, legend.
Oh, yeah.
And here I am, I'm playing with him. How did this happen?
Well, yeah, suddenly looking across, and the guy who did Sweet Child of Mine is right next to you. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and where, like, playing off each other and leaning against each other, like you do with the rock poses.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what is going on here? This is so surreal.
Wow.
But it was truly an epic tour. It was so fun to see, because I'd never really done, I'd done that kind of music with the Explorers, but I really hadn't done any professional touring. So it was interesting to actually watch the audience and see the fans for Slash are so insanely loyal. So when you're up on stage and you're watching all the people, and then all of a sudden there's a big hole in the people on the floor, and you're like, what is going on? And then they start moshing.
Oops.
I'd never seen that before. I've seen it in videos, but I'd never seen it, on stage before.
Wow. It's a throwback to 1991.
It's a culture. Yeah, totally. And it was just amazing how chaotic it was with such order, because after they were done moshing, they just, the hole filled up and everything was back to normal.
Wow.
You think they would all start fighting or something?
Exactly.
No, it's all in fun,
Wow. Hey, I want to talk about Took, but before we get too long into the interview, I just want to ask what I ask everybody. Cory Churko, if you could go back to the beginning and give yourself one piece of advice, what piece of advice would that be?
Well, I thought about this because I knew you'd ask me that. And because I do believe in destiny, I don't think I could have done anything differently. But if I was to tell myself, my 20-year-old self, what to do, I would say, focus more on songwriting so that in your future you can have some mailbox money.
Right.
Because right now I make a good living when I'm working, but I have to be there in order to make the money. When you write songs and you get good at it and you have a big catalog, and I do have a big catalog, but I was practicing more on how fast I could play rather than how good my song is that I could write.
Right. Do you have a lot of co-writing credits?
So, I have a few. Yeah, I have a few. And I wrote even with Kelly and stuff. But I should have wrote more as a kid, because now that I'm getting older, I'm thinking about, what's my future going to look like when I'm not playing anymore,
right?
Or if I can't play anymore.
Yeah.
And certainly having a bigger song catalog would help with mailbox money as I got older.
Interesting. Well, hey, let's move over to Took for a bit, because that is a fascinating project. This started out as, well, why don't you explain how it started out? Maybe take us back to Winnipeg when you did the Cancer Society, or I believe that's what it was originally started as.
Yeah, so I actually met Brent Fitz. He's the drummer for Slash.
Okay.
Winnipeg boy. I met him when I was playing with Reba. And Reba did a show in Vegas.
Okay.
And my brother was friends with Brent. And somehow I hooked up Brent with some tickets, or he was already coming. I can't remember. But we ended up going out and we had a great time. And he's a great guy. And, our relationship sort of flourished over the years. He called me up and he said, hey, would you like to do a cancer tribute, or not a tribute, but a cancer charity in Winnipeg for breast cancer? And I said, great. And Todd Kearns was also involved. He's the bass player for Slash and also frontman for Age of Electric, the Canadian rock band.
Right.
And we decided we'd all play this show together. We got a bass player from Winnipeg, the legendary Ken Sinave, whose nickname is Spider. He plays Street Hard and Tom Cochrane, and
okay.
credit list is long.
Yeah.
And the four of us played the charity show, and we made it our mission to have a theme of playing Canadian rock from the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And it went over so well. We had so much fun. We did the same charity a couple years later, I think.
Yeah.
Same thing, so much fun. And we just decided, hey, man, we got to record an album someday of all these tunes that we cut our teeth on as kids.
Right.
And we don't like to call ourselves a cover band because we consider it more like a celebration of the music that shaped us.
Right.
To become the successful, musicians that we are in the international community.
Right, because you guys do some awesome stuff on that stuff. I mean, you do some Chilliwack, you do some Prism, you do some Trooper. I'm just going off the top of my head there. Yeah, there's some great iconic songs from when I was a kid too.
Totally. These are all the songs that we cut our teeth on as kids. So they really meant a lot to us. Those bands were our heroes as kids. And so we decided, man, we should take these songs, do them exactly the same way, but give them, modern mixes and re-release them, because we all have a big international fan base.
Right.
And most of these Canadian songs were never heard outside of Canada.
No, so that's a good point.
In essence, it's like,
I hadn't thought about that.
So we're totally reintroducing, these songs to the Canadian people who have heard these songs on the radio, I'm sure, many times, but also to the rest of the world who've never heard these songs. So to them, it's almost like the original songs.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we make sure we give credit to the bands that we cover.
Oh, it's got to be multi-platinum.
We did the first album. What's that?
It's got to be multi-platinum if everyone's hearing for the first time, because that's killer stuff.
Exactly.
So the first album.
So we did the first album. It was called Giver.
Yeah.
And we played as many shows as we could, but because I'm always playing with Shania or Kelly at the time.
Yeah.
And the other guys are playing with Slash and doing their own things. There was very few holes that coordinated where we were all off at the same time.
Yeah.
But whenever we would play shows. And so we've only done, I think we've probably done less than 10 shows in the 7 or 8 years that we've been together.
Wow.
Which also keeps it fresh and exciting and fun for us.
Yeah.
We said we would stop. We'd never do this if it wasn't fun, because this to us is why we got into music in the first place. To have fun with people that we like, play music with people that we like, and when you get into the, more the success stories and all the camps and all the bureaucracy, all the lawyers and reading over contracts and stuff, it stops to be fun, right?
Right.
So, Took is all about, 4 brothers who just go out and have a laugh and play songs that we cut our teeth on. Our second album's coming out next month.
Okay.
It's called Never Enough.
Perfect.
And we have a original song for the first time on the record. Okay. Called Never Enough for You. So we're releasing the album on August 23rd.
Okay.
And then we're doing a CD release party up in Winnipeg.
Okay.
And we're playing some shows in Saskatchewan at the Shake the Lake event in Regina on the 31st of August.
Uh-huh.
And September 1st in Calgary. You can go to our website, toquerocks.ca, and Toque is Toque.
Yeah.
You can follow us all on Instagram and social media. Actually, that's kind of a funny story, because I just forgot my Facebook account, my password.
Okay.
And I couldn't get back in with the trusted contacts thing.
Okay.
So I had to make a new one yesterday. And I woke up this morning and Facebook sent me an email saying that my new account has been suspended because I'm impersonating Cory Churko.
That's funny.
So now I still don't have a Facebook account that I can get into.
If you can't prove
you, Facebook.
That's funny.
Jesus, yeah.
No,
so anyway, you can find the rest of the guys on Facebook, but not me at this point. I'm trying to remedy that. And yeah, so you can find out all about where the CD release party is going to be, and we're going to do some meet and greets at some music stores. So just follow us, and hopefully we can meet you.
Absolutely. Hey, Cory, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great time with this interview, and it was really insightful. And, maybe we can touch base again at some point, because I really want to see how your career develops after this. But thank you so much for joining us today. This was Cory Churko.
Thanks, Greg. I really enjoyed our talk. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, my friend.
Bye, Cory. Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and visit us on our website at greggoernert.com. That's greggoernert.com. Thanks again.